Hey, welcome back. So I thought I'd go ahead and wrap up Victober, finish out at least the last 2 weeks, weeks 3 and 4, and then I'll sum up everything from the whole month. Before we get started, have you seen Skippy in this video? Pause if you haven't seen her yet. I'm going to show you right now. She's hiding up there. I noticed it when I started filming. I thought it was pretty funny. I'd forgotten the picture was there. But anyway, so the final 2 weeks of Victober, I continued with my reading of Sherlock Holmes, which still falls within the Victorian era. Week 3, I had read The Hound of the Baskervilles, and I also watched the adaptation of it. And then I also read 6 short stories, which included The Empty House, The Norwood Builder, The Dancing Men, The Solitary Cyclist, Abbey Grange, and The Second Stain. And I won't go into detail about those because I talk more about them in my Sherlocktober wrap up, so you can go ahead and watch them there. I also watched all the adaptations for those as well, so I well and truly covered that particular challenge for Victober. In addition to the Sherlock Holmes stories, I also participated in the bonus read-along, which was to read Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. I chose to do the audio adaptation of it because I didn't have a lot of time with all the Sherlock Holmes books I was reading and everything else, and I figured I could kind of fit that in during driving and walking Skippy and stuff like that. It is a approximately 27-hour audiobook, and I chose the one read by Prunella Scales. She played the part of Basil Fawlty's wife on Fawlty Towers, and if you haven't seen that show, it is hilarious. But I thought Miss Scales did a very, very admirable job with the adaptation, or the narration. She did really good with the accents and the voices and the male and female voices and everything like that. The only issue I had with it was sometimes when she'd finish a chapter, she'd jump right into the next one. Chapter 5, and you just barely finished a breath on the last sentence of the previous one. It almost like threw you into it and kind of was a bit jarring. But other than that, I really enjoyed it, her narration of it. But it's broken into 3 parts, and I will tell you, with the plot and the pacing of it, the first part, I was bored. I was ready to quit the book, and by the second part I started getting a little bit more interested in. I think it was just so many characters in the beginning and just trying to figure out who was who. Made it a little bit, I don't know, frustrating, and like I said, I was losing it a little bit and getting a little bored with it. So the second part got a little bit more interesting, but I don't know what happened or when exactly it happened, but by the third part I'd fallen in love with the book, and everything just kind of came together, and even the beginning, everything just pieced together, and it just felt like a really great novel. And then it didn't end, and I completely forgot that the author had passed away before she had a chance to finish the novel. But I will warn you ahead of time, you can read it and not be disappointed, because it definitely is pointing in a direction where you can fill in the blanks yourself, and they do kind of discuss a little bit of it on the audiobook at the end. I then went on to watch the BBC adaptation of it. This is starring Francis Annis, Justin Waddell, Keely Hawes, and Michael Gambon. It's a little mini-series of it. They do make an adaptation ending. It's kind of different than, I think, exactly the way she had planned it out, but the major points are in the right direction and everything, and I thought they did a fantastic job. I fell in love with this even more so than the book. And anyway, it's basically a coming-of-age story of one Molly Gibson. She lives with her father. He's a doctor in Hollingsford, well-respected man. It's a smaller kind of rural community. The Comfords are the aristocracy within the area, and the story opens up with Molly kind of attending a party there. She gets kind of bored, goes outside, falls asleep in the sunshine, where she's discovered and invited back into the house to kind of sleep in one of the rooms until the party's over, and then she'll leave with the rest of the group, but they forget about her, and then her father kind of has to come and fetch her. While she's there, she encounters Miss Clare, also known as Mrs. Kirkpatrick, or Hyacinth Kirkpatrick. She is a widow who was a governess there at one time, after her death of her husband kind of left her a bit in debt. And she also has a daughter of her own named Cynthia. We'll find out more about this particular woman later. Although when her father comes to collect her, it was really nice, a real touching scene within the adaptation as well. You can see the love that they have for each other and how close they are, having basically she being his only child and raising her on his own, kind of with the help of 2 governesses. But he also is, in terms of his doctor duties, has two students kind of working with him, and one of them is a Mr. Cox, who, as we see Molly growing older, he writes a love letter and tries to deliver it to her secretly, but Dr. Gibson intercepts it and admonishes the man for writing this letter, and decides that maybe it's best that he sends Molly away for a while and sends her to Hamley Hall to stay with Squire Hamley and his wife and their two sons, Osborne, the oldest, and Roger, the youngest. They welcome her as a daughter, having lost their own daughter when she was quite young. I think it was scarlet fever. And she definitely feels a part of the family, and really appreciates being made to feel that way, and the closest she feels to Mrs. Hamley, having never had a mother of her own. She looks on Osborne and Roger almost as brothers to her. And while she's away, her father kind of falls in love with Hyacinth Kirkpatrick, and decides that it's time that Molly has an actual mother figure living in it. I think he maybe marries her more for Molly than for himself, although there is some passion there that we see at least within the adaptation of the TV adaptation of it. And Molly's quite shocked and upset, and kind of voices her opinion to her father, and then feels bad about it and tries to make up to it and tries to be, you know, a daughter to this new mother. They even ask her to call her mom, you know, or mom, whatever, but she's uncomfortable with it, but goes along with it. A lot of times you see her kind of, she can be very a bit headstrong and will kind of voice her opinion, but there's times when you see her say, you know, okay, I'll go along with this. I'll go along with this. She becomes very close friends with Cynthia, her new sister-in-law, and there's a definite contrast between these two women. Molly being very innocent, naive, and then Cynthia, who's very headstrong, very worldly, having kind of attended school in France. And both of these characters, though, have one thing that they somewhat share in common, is having pretty much grown up without a mother. Molly through having lost her mother through death, and Cynthia through kind of inattention from her mother, sending her off to school in France and not really being a major, really being around, and also kind of a bit more self-centered. And you kind of see that kind of carrying over also to Cynthia in her behavior as well. So she's definitely a chip off their shoulder. But there are some parts that you kind of like. She also has a hidden secret, which Molly will come to discover and kind of be kind of caught up in, and it'll affect her life and situations as well. She also becomes caught up in a situation from the Hamleys with Osborne, a secret that she learns that he begs not to be revealed to Squire Hamley. And as much as this particular book is called Wives and Daughters, it could equally be called Fathers and Sons. It's definitely about the characters and the family dynamics around each of these members. And I really like the Hamleys. I like that whole storyline that takes place that you learn. And I just found the characters so captivating. The more, like I said, the more the story went on, the more you learn, and the more you see Molly grow, and sort of this blossoming feelings beyond sisterly love for Roger, and that whole development of the story, and the flighty kind of feelings you get from Cynthia, and that contrast as well. I just really, really fell in love with all these characters. Dr. Gibson was a great fatherly figure. I really enjoyed the actor who plays him. I don't know which particular name the actor was, but I thought he did a fantastic job. I loved watching the bonus features at the end of this as well, and the discussions of it. It's just a really, really wonderful Victorian novel that I didn't see coming in the beginning, and I'm glad I stuck with it. So I highly recommend it, and I'm looking forward to reading more from Elizabeth Gaskell. Yeah, I think the next one I'm going to probably check out. I'm at least going to watch all these adaptations and eventually pick up the novels for these. My original plan for the read a Victorian novel and watch its adaptation was supposed to be Silas Marner. I did watch the film adaptation because I stumbled across it, but I didn't get around to reading the novel, which was also to be my challenge for read a book written anonymously or under some sort of pseudonym, and so I didn't quite get to that particular challenge. Other than that, I did read I did complete the challenge of read a book with a pronoun or proper noun in the title, and also one of the authors, or one of the host's favorite authors, which was Charles Dickens, or in this case Elizabeth Gaskell. That was another favorite. And also she did appear in this one as a short story. So I did quite a few of the challenges. I was overall very happy with my reading for October. I did the Sherlocktober and I did the Victober. I wanted to read a few more kind of ghostly type stories because that's what I prefer to read during this month. I had hoped this would fit the bill, but like I said in my Victober week 1 and 2 video, that it wasn't really ghostly at all. It wasn't as described, basically an abandoned haunted house and a party and these various people telling what their experiences were in the forms of short stories. They weren't ghostly, they weren't related to the house, and I don't know what the whole point was. And for a vampire story, it was more, I don't know, more like a lesbian fiction kind of than it was focused on the vampire aspect of it. It wasn't as scary or anything as I had hoped it would be. But overall, I still enjoyed everything that I did read. It was a nice kind of experience with the writing. I did enjoy that. I did not get to Agnes Grey, which I really hope to, so maybe at a later time we'll see. But anyway, that's what I kind of finished off for Victober. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and yeah, I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.